Welcome, and I'm delighted to be with Tanya Kapoor, senior at Claremont McKenna College in California. So Tanya, welcome once again, and so delighted to have this conversation with you. So in this segment, what we'll cover is your journey as a high school student with all the stress, being in an American school, thinking of universities and colleges in the US, being overwhelmed by so many options, and the whole process. What was it like for you in, say, 11th grade and then working towards your application? What do you think worked in your favor finally when you applied to Claremont?
I think one of the biggest things that finally worked in my favor was creating a more focused application. So I think, when it comes to picking your subjects, when you start 11th grade, you have to pick your IB subjects. So you typically want to pick subjects that you think are, possibly related to what you want to do in the future, because that helps in showing like, hey, that this kid is interested in, let's say biology. So that's why she's taking bio and chem in IB. The other thing that I think really helped was the extracurricular activities that I took were all sort of focused around one theme, which in my case was healthcare. So a lot of the clubs I would worked with, for example, I used to work with Smile Train, which is an NGO that works, that raises funds and helps provide surgeries for children with cleft lips. So in all of those ways, a lot of the extracurricular activities I did was central on one theme. So when I turned in my app, I wanted to study biology. So a lot of, my academic background plus the extracurriculars kind of like, I think pushed it towards that like, okay, this person actually enjoys and wants to study biology.
And so if you want to also talk about the things which are more fuzzy as to what works in a college application essay, the personal essay, or how do you sort of maybe influence or inspire teachers to sort of put in things that you would care for to be mentioned in a letter of recommendation. Many of these things are out of your control. So how do you sort of manage the entire process?
So I think for letter of recs, I think you just really have to hope that you've made a good impression on your teacher and really just ask the teacher that you think you have a good relationship with. I think it's just that. Otherwise, like that's just something you can't control. You will never see a letter of rec. You just really hope that they write good stuff about you. In terms of the essays, I think it's really important to make it something that you're really passionate about and something that you're interested in. For example, I love Harry Potter. Like I really enjoyed those books, and I tried to incorporate a little bit of Harry Potter into my essay, and adding that just kind of made it interesting to me, and I hoped it made it interesting to the admission person. Sorry, at the admission office who read my essay. So I think it's just like making it something that you're interested in and something that you like genuinely enjoy writing, because you're going to go through multiple drafts of that.
Right.
So, yeah.
So when you now changing the question now, it's more about college research and making a list. I know you mentioned always that you care about small schools, and that's what those are the schools, kind of smaller schools made it to your list. How did it actually pan out when you set foot on Claremont? Did you learn more about small schools? What were the things you did not know in hindsight? And overall, how was your academic journey like at Claremont?
Yeah, so I'll start with the academic journey. I think, I was really excited to come to a small school. Like I said, I was really excited to be able to actually talk to my professors, and have those discussions, stay back after class and ask some questions, because I'd heard a lot of friends older than me where, you just work with the TAs, the professor just comes and gives you a lecture, which is something I personally didn't want. And the other thing that I was a little surprised about, or it took me back, was it's actually, the academics are pretty tough here. And, each class takes a lot of work. And I think that comes because of its small class size, that professors demand a lot of you. So you have to come prepared to each class. You can't just not do the reading, because they will ask you a question about it and you need to, and you like need to have done it. You have to do all the prep work that comes with it. And so the midterms, like exams, so everything makes a difference. Even class participation, whether you show up in class, how much you've contributed, whether you genuinely ask questions or you're silent. So all of that builds up into like how much work a class is. And so that way I was take a little bit taken aback, in comparison to high school, that okay, 4 college classes is actually like quite a bit out here.
The other thing which I noticed was how you went in thinking life sciences, biology is something you'd want to do. And the beauty of small colleges, for everyone listening, is the flexibility. In general, in the US too, you have that flexibility to change your major, get influenced or get inspired by a class that you attend or even your roommate attends, and then sort of get to know more about it. How was it for you moving from life sciences to economics and management and then finance? Um, just explain how those choices panned out, how difficult or easy it is to make those decisions and get resources or start classes in those fields.
Yeah, so I think in terms of how easy those decisions are make, that's person to person, what's your process for evaluation. But for me, I came in thinking I wanted to study biology because, that was one of my favorite subjects. But then coming in, realizing, by talking to professors and seniors and just, being in that environment where, college kids are thinking what they want to do in the future, I realized that when you study bio, there are two main pathways. And one of that is pre-med, which I didn't want to do, and the other is research, which I also didn't want to do. So then I thought back to high school. I actually a high school that I really liked economics. I'd also taken an economics class in my freshman year, and turns out I really liked it. So I took a bunch more of econ classes, and I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to do econ too. I'll keep the bio because I love studying about the human body. Then fortunately, our science department has a major where it sort of combines the sciences and economics. So that's why my major is called science management. And then, students have the option of pursuing any kind of science they want. So there are people who do like physics and econ or chemistry and econ or something else. So for me, that focus ended up being bio and econ. And so, and turns out, more and more econ classes I'm taking, I find that really interesting. I'm still like, right now, I'm still taking neuroendocrinology on the side. I'm taking advanced corporate finance. So it's been an interesting dynamic to have. But, I think that being in a liberal arts school, changing majors is the easiest thing. All you need to do is submit a form, no questions asked.
Fantastic. When you look at opportunities which were maybe directly linked with your areas of interest, say, then gradually moving towards finance or finance internships, how does it work at a college like Claremont, which is so well resourced with the career services and other sort of networking groups that you could join?
Mhm.
How was your transition from learning what you do to seeking out internships or doing networking in the industry?
Yeah, so Claremont actually has a really amazing career services center. So every week, there's like a different like newsletter for finance internships that they send out, or even for consulting internships. So for every industry, they actually send out different newsletters that you can subscribe to, with a list of them. So that was one of the big things for looking at internships. They also have like, people who work in there who can actually like career service mentors, who you can go and like talk to and say like, hey, I need help writing with this cover letter. I'm like, I'm not sure where I should start in this process. Like, I just realized I'm interested into it. How do I get an internship? They'll help you. They'll make you help. They'll sort of help you form an action plan. But otherwise, honestly, I think finance it's such a big industry, and within finance, there's so many different niches of internships that you can apply to. There's investment banking, there's credit, there's asset management, there's wealth management. So a lot of the times you kind of maybe just think about, read the description, see what you're really interested in, do your own research. And there are lots of places like Handshake or LinkedIn where all of these different job postings come up. So finding all these kind of jobs posting is not tough. There's so many out there. It's just putting in the effort and all the stuff, and preparing for the interviews, and actually the initial process of writing cover letters. That's all the stuff that sort of takes the most amount of work.
It's also interesting to see how you've continued your interest in ESG, environmental sort of science, in a way that you're contributing to a center on campus. So tell us a little bit more about what the center does, and also your role in it in the last 2 years. It seems you've been busy with it.
Yeah, so the Roberts Environmental Center is a research center on CMC that focuses on different aspects of the environment. So we have research teams that focus on maybe like doing a lot more sort of research that's focused on like more, let's say like, sorry, can we like edit this part? So it's a research center that focuses on the environment. So, and that's sort of different niches in the environment. So we've got teams that focus on perhaps the intersection between the environment and finance, maybe like what are some sustainable practices that businesses can pursue. We've got teams that focus on environmental education. So we've got one team that goes out to a middle school nearby and teaches them different environmental lessons. And so it really just depends on the different teams here. So we've got a team called Policy and Outreach. We've got the natural sciences, we've got conservation. So for example, the conservation team does a lot of different kind of soil analysis. We've got an energy team. So when I started out at the research center, I was an analyst. So I would work on the team and I would just, either do the different sort of maybe stuff on Excel or doing research for whatever project we were doing and compiling summaries on it, just all the nitty gritty work. And then after a year, maybe 2 years, I was a team manager. So in that, you kind of just, delegate, I guess, different parts of the project to different analysts and kind of streamline, make sure everything is going, on the right time track. We also a lot of times work for different clients, so making sure that we have a good line of communication between the team and the client, making sure we're meeting all of their sort of guidelines, I guess.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty amazing experience for a high school junior or a senior. It's like almost like a full-time job, it seems, and the way you described it. Jobs on campus can be so exciting. So all our listeners who would be looking at college as a place to do academics, you can actually get real life work experience along the way at some of these centers at schools like Claremont. The other big highlight, I think, when we talk about Claremont McKenna to our students is also look at opportunities in your areas of interest. And you seem to have had a diverse sort of range of interests. One of them was working, or rather being part of the Silicon Valley program and being part of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. What do you sort of highlight there in terms of the experience? I know it's been 2 years, but perhaps you did it when the world was still open, or I don't know, because it's spring, so hopefully it was open.
It was right in the middle of that. So the Silicon Valley program, I did it my sophomore spring, and it's basically a program that allows students to go and work in the Bay Area, but you're still a full-time student. So Monday to Fridays, you're working a 9 to 5 job. On Saturdays, you have your classes, and throughout the week, you're turning in assignments for different classes. So you're a full-time employee and a student at the same time, which sounds really overwhelming, but the way the program is structured is they kind of like space out things a lot in terms of the academic stuff so that you're not overwhelmed. And they front load a lot of the academic syllabus within the first 2 weeks of the program, from which you're not working, you're just in class 6, 7 hours a day. I took an exam within 1 week. So what that kind of gave me the opportunity to do was see what it's like to work in the Bay Area. For example, I've never been to the US. So, everybody's talking about living and working in Silicon Valley. So it gave me that experience, but it also was my first experience of working within the corporate world. So I worked for another financial company, and what it means to be working for a company like that. When you turn in assignments for school, it's very different from when you turn in assignments from work. You have to pay a lot more attention to detail. Everything matters at work a lot more than it does at school. So that was the kind of experience I got, and I found that to be like extremely valuable.
It's amazing that you've been able to have this journey and experience so many interesting things in the 4 years you've been there. So looking forward to following your journey, and thank you so much for joining us today. Take care and bye.
Anytime. Thanks, Arjun.